Everest Live. A lot of excitement on Everest today. We've got summits on Everest and on Lhotse. And then we also have a dramatic rescue that we're still just getting some last minute information on. So, a very, very exciting day on Everest. And I'll just jump right into it from our cozy tent here at Everest Base Camp. I'm Ben Ayers. This is Everest Live. It's May 18th. So basically, today we saw another big day of summits, matching about what we saw yesterday. The official number for yesterday was 83 summits total. And today, to the best of my calculations, I came up with 84. So let's say it's pretty similar to yesterday. There were big teams today. Tag Nepal or Climbing the Seven Summits had a team of 24 on the summit early this morning. 14 Peaks Expeditions also had a team of 24. Altapro had a team of 8. They were summited at like 2 something in the morning. And that's great. That also included a woman, Jen Willis, who's the first Australian woman with multiple sclerosis to summit. And she was going up there with our friend Fuju Lama, who has the current speed record for women on Everest. Kind of a dream team over there. 8K had 6 summiteers and 7 summits treks had 22. Within that 22 was our good friend Murillo, who's based here with us at in Arnold Coster. Murillo and his Sherpa Dev reached the summit this morning and made it back down to Camp 4 safely. So in that regard, it was a good day. Today also, May 18th, is the 70th anniversary of the first summit of Lhotse. And celebrating that, there was probably like 28, 29, 30 summits of Lhotse today. Amongst them was Anya Blancha. Anya is a super strong climber, and this marked her 13th no-O's ascent of an 8,000 meter peak. She only has Shishapangma left to go. Huge effort on her part. Really, really cool. And we're wishing her all the best. And hopefully China will open up to climbing someday soon so she can finish her quest. So that's kind of the summit roundup. What are we looking at in the next couple days? I think so. One of the things I wanted to kind of lay out for folks is, as of yesterday, between that first day when the rope fixers reached the summit and yesterday's climbing, we had about 100 climbers total, maybe a little bit more. Today, we've added 85 to that, right? So let's say we've got just under 200 people having reached the summit this year. Last year we saw about 800 summits total. That's including, high altitude climbing guides, Sherpas, and paying clients. And so I'm thinking this year we're going to see something in the same realm. So we're about a quarter of the way there. And we're looking at probably 5, 6 days, 7 days of available weather moving forward if the forecast holds. So what I think we're going to start seeing is that the crowds are going to start getting a little bit more in the coming days. My prediction is that tomorrow, the 19th, which was initially not a great weather day. So when people were making their decisions, there weren't a whole lot of people that cast their lots on the 19th. I think we'll see a bit of a dip in summits on the 19th, and then 20th, 21st, 22nd, we'll see a big jump in summits. But I do want to also point out that what we're seeing is like 80, 85 summits a day is actually, it seems like a lot, but it's actually super chill. Like that's a pretty spaced out pace for summiteers. It's a low enough number that people can pretty much navigate the mountain at their own pace. It's not like super rush hour traffic like everybody's concerned about. On the 20th, 21st, we might see a little bit of crowding up high, but again, as things are spaced out, hopefully that will stay. The weather report, when we look at it, most of the weather reports are showing continued good weather. One of the reports is showing maybe a slight increase in winds. It's the weather, who knows? But as of right now, I think people are following their plans. And we'll, again, like I said, we're going to be seeing summits from tomorrow all the way through probably 24th, 25th. Interestingly, those later summits are a lot of the oxygenless climbers, people who are looking to summit when it's a little bit warmer later in the season and to have less crowding on the mountain. So we're going to see how that all plays out. So to talk about this rescue that just happened like 10 minutes ago, it was really kind of an incredible thing to watch. There was a young female climber, a Nepali woman climbing with 8K Expeditions, and she fell into a crevasse just below Camp 2. Reports say that she fell about 20 meters into the crevasse, so that's about 60 feet for us Americans. That's a long ways down, and she suffered significant injuries. I think the story of this rescue is a bit like the last Camp 2 rescue that we covered, is how all of the climbers on the route who were around her just stopped everything and they pulled off a really complex technical rescue to get her out of the bottom of the crevasse. And they mobilized a helicopter immediately, and in kind of, you can see behind me, it's super fogged in right now, but in this perfect little weather window, the altitude air helicopter came in and was able to get her out and bring her out to more advanced care in Lukla, maybe Kathmandu today. I'm not sure. We'll update you as to her condition. I'm holding her name back now just out of respect for her and her family until until everyone's been notified and everything's clear. But what was really, what I guess I wanted to sort of talk about with this rescue is that it all happened maybe in the course of an hour or less. And again, this goes to like the technical and the logistical complexity of everything that's happening on Everest. The fact that when the weather's good, people can pull off these incredible rescues and save a lot of lives. And I think that's why we're seeing, the death rate on Everest, which everyone loves to talk about, is going down. And a lot of it has to do with the strength and the capability and the teamwork of all the teams on the mountain. So I just want to, send a lot of love and light to the young woman who's recovering now, and hope that it's a speedy and healthy recovery. And I also wanted to send out some congratulations to all the teams and all the people that saved a life and made this rescue possible. I have some of the names here. Forgive me for looking at my phone. This literally, I got these in like 30 seconds before I went live. So memorizing them or writing them down in a subtle way was something I didn't have time to do. But basically, the rescue, the 8K Expeditions team led the rescue. The climber was working, was with that team. But also there was support from Satori Expeditions and also from Furtenbach Expeditions. So well done. You can see like across companies, everyone's pulling together to make Everest as safe as possible. The main technical lead of the rescue was Pastenji Sherpa. He's a super legend, definitely worth following on Instagram. Ashok Lama, some of you may have seen in our Everest Live content, we did a report on this incredible rescue on Annapurna. That's Ashok. He's back doing it again. This is the third rescue he's been involved in. After he went to Annapurna, he went to Makalu, and he ran from Camp 2 on Makalu all the way back up to Camp 4 with extra oxygen for a client who was struggling. Ashok is a super legend and one of the strongest, young Sherpas coming up through, and he's sort of a stalwart of the 8K team. There was also Valentin Supavin, who's a foreign climber working with 8K, Dawa Temba, and Sangay Sherpa. There was also Dawa Jungbu Sherpa and Pemba Tenji Sherpa from 8K helped out. So I just wanted to read their names, recognize the life-saving work that they've done, give them a pat on the back. These kind of accidents, unfortunately, when you have 1,000 people on the mountain, happen, and when you look at the numbers, Everest is actually getting safer and safer, and it's a credit to young men like these that this is possible. So well done, everyone. And that's kind of, the main dispatch for today. Before we jump into questions, there was one last thing too that I just wanted to share, just out of like, information, or it's not really a rant, but it was a thought that I had. I had lunch today. Coincidentally, I had lunch with the 8K team today, and I was talking with Lakba, the director. And we were just kind of he's like a lot of the trekking company, sorry, expedition company owners here in Nepal. The people who are leading the major companies now are all, by and large, are Sherpas from the Makalu region in Nepal. There's also others from Rawaling. There's ones from Khumbu. There are people from all over. But a lot of the bigger companies, the expedition leaders, have followed a similar process of coming from very remote villages with very little resources, working as porters and working their way all the way up through the chain to where they're starting their own expedition companies. And Lakba was kind of telling me his life story and how he came about founding 8K and all of that. And one of the things that sort of we talked about was how, and it's something we haven't totally gone deep on here, but it's really interesting to me, was sort of how when you look at Everest climbing, up until like 2012, 13, 11, 12, 13, all of the climbing, the major expedition outfitters and the companies were very much run by Western guides, and were sort of that yeah, the Western guides were the ones that were calling the shots, and it was the community of international guides that were making the decisions and kind of controlling the way that Everest climbing happened. In 2013, 14, 15, Nepali companies were, these are all people that had mentored with this initial group of guides. The people like, Russell Bryce and Eric Simonson, Dan Mazur, like there was all sorts of these people, Henry Todd, and it goes on and on and on. They sort of mentored this next generation of entrepreneurs who then started up their own companies, which started offering better services at cheaper prices. And right now, what we're seeing is that by and large, the expedition operators here on the Khumbu Glacier at Everest Base Camp are by and large run by Nepali nationals. And the foreign guides, folks like Arnold, Fortenbach, Mike Hamill at Climbing the Seven Summits, they still have a very special role and a niche role, and everybody works together. But there's been this shift from like the way that the mountain was managed went from sort of foreign leadership to Nepali leadership over the past 10 years. And, that and with that followed what we see as like the great commercialization on the mountain. That's when the numbers started getting bigger, started seeing tons more people on the mountain. But also one of the things that Lakba and I were talking about today that I'd never really thought about and wanted to share with you all is when, a lot of us talk about the garbage problem on Mount Everest, right? And a lot of us are talking about, Everest is a garbage dump. That's sort of the stereotype. But the interesting thing is like that that transition of Nepali control on the mountain also paralleled the beginning of the cleanup operations on Everest and the beginning of the seasons where year after year, thanks to efforts like the SPCC, thanks to all the teams pitching in and following the rules of having to bring down 6 or 8 kilograms of garbage from the higher camps, thanks to technology like airlift with the drones, all of this stuff is Nepali run. The mountain's starting to get cleaner. And right now, base camp is extremely clean. Camp 1 and Camp 2 are extremely clean. The harder to reach places, Camp 3, Camp 4, those are places that still need to be addressed. But a lot of that garbage is dates way back. I mean, it's like archaeology. It goes way back into the 80s, 90s, 2000s. And so that's just kind of a rant I wanted to share with you that I found interesting and hadn't really thought about. But that I think that there's been a lot of criticism in the mountaineering world about the Nepali operators saying, well, Everest became less safe, it became more crowded, more people started dying. But people hadn't really looked into the fact that once the mountain sort of had Nepali ownership, we're also starting to see things like the cleanup, like the thorough cleanup that's been happening. I had a lot of friends. I remember early Everest expeditions in the early 2000s and stuff. Everyone would do an Everest cleanup expedition because you felt good about yourself and you brought down a little bit of garbage, but there was never a comprehensive, actually effective cleanup campaign that happened. So I just a thought I had today that I thought I'd put out there. Get your thoughts, get your responses. But it does, to me, help me feel optimistic about the future of Everest. And when you're looking at things like legislation that's working its way through the Nepali government about requiring 7,000-meter experience, there's a lot of expedition operators here in Nepal that are saying you need 8,000-meter experience. The industry here is aware of the challenges and they're working as they can to address them. And I find that inspiring. And I find that is a parallel to this rescue that we just saw, where at the end of the day, it's a big industry, it's complicated, it's dangerous, but there are a lot of good people working to make it better. So, big rant for today. I see that there's a ton of questions, so I'm going to jump in to those. That's a lot of summit cake for all those people, for the 84 that summited today and the 83 that summited yesterday. You're absolutely right about that. Uh, Arnold and Andy and I get to eat that summit cake here because it's still going to be a couple days before any of them get back to base camp. Base camp right now is like a ghost town, and we're at this part of the Everest season where when the summits start happening, it's when the weather's good. It's when things are bright and sunny and warm during the day. And base camp just sort of like melts like a popsicle. So it's really difficult to walk anywhere because all of the walkways that were laid out are all sort of, falling apart and melting. And I fell on my ass twice today. It's quite embarrassing, but we survived. So yeah, lots of summit cakes coming up. I just want to check the number of permits for clients and the number of summits as clients and guides. Do guides and high altitude workers need permits? Great question. The number of permits for climbers, and so these are people who are not working on the mountain. Some of them are Nepalis, which is why I'm saying like climbers, but most of them are international, is 492. The estimate that I tend to think about is that for every foreigner, every client, every climber per se that's climbing the mountain, you have on average probably two Sherpas going to the summit at least. And so when we look at the number of 800, that compensates for Sherpas who make multiple trips per year, like the rope fixing teams who go back and go up with clients. It also compensates for, a fairly significant dropout rate for clients. I mean, it's not like all 492 people are going to make it to the summit. So that's kind of how I get those numbers. And last year, that's where we got that 800 number. That was just the official tally at the end of the season. And do the local workers need permits? Yes, absolutely. Everybody, including us here at base camp, everybody's got to have a permit. The Nepali permits are much cheaper. They don't pay the $15,000 instead. I think they pay something like around $2,000. But they all have to be permitted. It's all totally regulated. You can't just kind of go and waltz your way up to the summit. It's all very organized and tracked. The actual data, the reason that like I'm kind of calling people all day trying to figure out how many people summited where is, that data, there is a standard way where you submit your summit photo to the Department of Tourism and they log it, but all of that data takes months to come out. So right now the data that we're getting is not perfect, but it's pretty accurate based upon what we're able to tell from expedition operators here at base camp. Shout out to everyone involved in the rescue. Amen. Thanks so much. Hi, Ecuador. Nice to see you. Thanks for joining us. More shout outs to the rescue team. I think it's super well deserved. It's really inspiring. Thank God the weather sort of cooperated as well. And someone mentioned Miss BC1 mentioned that they're so happy that Sherpas are being recognized as the experts they are, and I agree with that. And I think it's something that we're starting to see year upon year is that not only are the Nepali workers, the high altitude workers, the Sherpas being recognized, we're also seeing that the talent and the technical skills, the rescue skills, all of that is going up year after year. As also Nepal is developing a lot more like training and rescue infrastructure and professionalism. The Nepal International Mountain Guides Association, the Nepal Mountain Guides Association, the Nepal Mountain Guides Instructors Association. There's all these different groups that are doing great stuff to increase the professionalism. And a lot of companies, too, are paying for their teams to go and get these certifications. There's a lot of Nepalis becoming IFMGA, International Federations of Mountain Guides, certified guides, which is like a PhD in mountaineering. It takes like 6 or 7 years to get this certification, and there are dozens of Nepalis working in that capacity on the mountain. So a shout out to everyone. Climbs are ascending and descending at the same time. How many places are so narrow that they're only one way, therefore there's a wait, and are they mostly in the death zone? Yeah, these kind of bottlenecks tend to happen above Camp 3. And they're not like super huge and extensive, but they are there. I can't speak to exactly how many of them are. What do you think, Arnold? Arnold's looking at me.
There's about 4 places that are narrow.
So Arnold's saying that there's 4 major places that are narrow.
And
high up.
Still, it's always possible to pass.
Yeah.
If you have the skills.
Totally. So what Arnold's saying is that there are 4 major places that it's kind of a one-way street, high up on the mountain. And for skilled guides and skilled climbers, you can still leapfrog around people. You just need to have the skills and the knowledge to do it safely. So those are the main constrictions. From Camp 2 down, it's pretty easy. And even up and down the Lhotse face, it's pretty easy. Hi, do you think the mountain is safer because Sherpas run more expeditions and probably are more respected and listened to nowadays? I think it's safer because of that, and as I mentioned, because of the professional skills of the community, of the Nepali community on the mountain. Their rescue skills, their climbing skills, their technical skills are going up year after year. I think another part of it is the logistics, simple things like the availability of helicopters. While there are times, and there's often kind of a debate, there's like 40, 50 helicopter flights a day to base camp sometimes during the season. And while that's annoying, if you're trying to take a nap or like write an article for Outside Magazine, all of that annoyance goes out the window when that availability of these high performance helicopters saves lives. And we see that day after day. So I think it's a combination of all those things. Any idea how many climbers? Oh, does the government support the Nepalese business owners? Yeah, I think more or less. I don't think the business climate here is easy. A lot of things in Nepal happen sort of in the informal sector. I think, having lived in Nepal as long as I have, having run nonprofits and businesses here, there's, if you need to get something done, if you need to get a business registered or pay your taxes or whatever, it takes an ungodly amount of time and a whole lot of paperwork. But Nepalis are good at navigating that. So in some ways, the bureaucracy slows innovation and slows entrepreneurialism down. On the other hand, these Nepali operators that are successful have figured out how to work within that system. The operators that I've talked to, by and large, have all wanted more regulation in the industry than there is. And there's a bit of a dichotomy where they feel like, this there's intense price competition on the mountain. And so sometimes that can be a race to the bottom. And certain companies sort of feel like, well, there's these clients that are coming and, we don't necessarily have enough resources to take care of them, or they don't want to pay enough. But on the other hand, if they don't go with us, they might go with a company who will have less safety standards than we do or whatever. And so sometimes, the crowding and the lack of the commercialism on the mountain sometimes is sort of a push thing by the customers as much as it's a pull thing by the companies. And a lot of those companies wish that the playing field was made safer through regulation, like previous experience on 7 or 8,000 meter peaks, potentially limiting permit numbers. Like those are all conversations that many companies are very happy to engage in, but they're things that haven't had political traction yet. Any idea how many climbers are going to go for the summit tonight? My guess is going to be 70. I think it's going to be less than we saw today. That's my guess. But I don't know. Arnold, have you heard any word from South Summit?
70, 80.
Yeah, Arnold's agreed. 70, 80. So today, maybe a little smaller tonight, and then we'll see a ton of people coming up the day after. Great that the Nepalis are owning the cleanup and setting requirements. Agreed. Oh, yeah, thanks for liking my rant. I appreciate it. How many climbers does a permit represent? 1 climber, 1 permit. You can have a team, where there's a team leader and a number of people, but there needs to be like, if you're paying $15,000 for a climbing permit, that's for 1 person. There's requirements around people needing to have guides, but there are people who climb sort of without guides. Those sometimes you can have a guide for a few foreigners going up the mountain. It all depends on how the company wants to run it, but more or less it's one permit per person as you go. For companies, do the companies pay for their people's permits for the Sherpas, et cetera? Yeah, absolutely. That's a fixed cost. So if you're paying $50,000 for an Everest expedition and you're coming here to base camp and you're going with, any outfitter, that $50,000 is covering your permit fees and it's covering the permit fees for all of the team members that are working with you to make it possible. Obviously, that's pooling if there's, shared stuff, but no, the workers here don't have to pay out of pocket for their own permits or that kind of thing. What's my perspective on some of the criticism of low budget expedition companies and more deaths, frostbite, et cetera, that are associated? I mean, my experience here is that if you want to climb Mount Everest, that is probably not the experience that you want to save money on for the sake of saving money on. My experience here is I've seen that there's kind of different tiers of expedition companies. And the ones that are on the bottom of the budget range, they're providing very, very basic services and they won't have the resources to attract the best talent, to attract the safest and most experienced high altitude workers and guides. And they won't necessarily have the resources to be able to facilitate a rescue like we just saw with 8K. These bigger companies that are taking on more clients have a pooled resource, which makes it safer as a whole. They've got a ton more Sherpas on the mountain. They'll have extra Sherpas in backup in case if you're a high altitude worker, your Sherpa gets sick at Camp 3, they'll have somebody else who can jump in and still bring you to the summit if need be. I was talking to Climbing the Seven Summits today, their team, and they were talking about how they look at it, and they're one of the more expensive operators, but they look at their whole thing in terms of redundancies. How do we have so much backup? How do we have more oxygen than we think we're going to need? How do we have extra manpower where we think we're going to need it? So on and so forth. So paying more for an Everest expedition isn't necessarily paying for luxury. The level of service at base camp, once you're in that middle or upper tier, is pretty comparable. Some of the like really expensive ones, like it can be really fancy, but it's at the end of the day, you're still cold and you're still like pooping in a bucket, And so my advice on all this stuff is, and to compare them all, if you're a super accomplished climber and if you feel like climbing Everest is something, if you've climbed a bunch of other 8,000-meter peaks or you're super self-sufficient, these cheaper expedition companies can provide you with base camp services. They can provide you with Sherpa teammates to go up with, so on and so forth. But you're going to be more responsible for your safety than if you're going with the middle or higher tier companies that have that depth of professional experience and pooled resources to kind of keep you safe and also kind of teach you as you go up the mountain. So that's kind of how I see it. The oftentimes you do see with the more budget companies, you have climbers with less experience and less resources, which, I don't mean to be like an economic gatekeeper on Everest, but there are a lot of people who want to climb Everest, but they don't have the funds to go climb Mount Slough first. They don't maybe have the thought to do that, and they'll go with a cheaper company. And that's where we see bigger incidences of accidents, frostbite, because you have this double whammy of having climbers that are less experienced and less resourced, and having kind of expedition teams that are also less experienced and less resourced, if that makes any sense. And a lot of this stuff, like if you want to learn how to climb 8,000-meter peaks and all that stuff, it doesn't have to be crazy expensive. You don't have to like break the bank. You can go train, go train on Mount Washington in New Hampshire, go train on Mount Rainier. Like there's a lot of basic skills you can learn wherever you live in Europe, in North America, that you can kind of cut your teeth on to understand if mountaineering is for you. You really want to build up to that. And that also gives you time then to save for an expedition that will keep you safe. And that, of course, is priceless. All right. Moving on. And I'm going to kind of start moving quickly. The keepers of the mountain, absolutely. Thanks, Arnold. They've been wondering about the log jams or so Arnold says you're welcome. When they have to leapfrog around, who has the right of way? Who's expected to unclip and do the leapfrogging? If you want to go fast on Everest, that is your choice, and you have to take full responsibility for your speed. The slow person is the slow person, and they're not expected to get off the rope because you're in a hurry to get to the summit or you have something to prove. It's the responsibility of the faster party to safely move around the slower party. Is that accurate? Yeah. About the cleanup, we've all seen videos of deserted tents and they have company names on them. Do those companies get any complication because of this? That's a great question. I would say, unfortunately, the real politic of that is no. There isn't kind of a garbage. The SPCC manages the waste removal on the mountain, but they aren't like garbage cops where they're like going up and taking pictures and finding people for leaving tents up high. Sometimes too, like when you see tents with company brands and stuff on them, it's these things are a result of like heavy winds. There is a degree of garbage on Everest that's inevitable because like a huge windstorm will come on and blow 50 tents off of Camp 2 and far, far away. And if that happens, I mean, it's very hard to go and clean that up. Sometimes in the cleanups, you're seeing the result of that, not carelessness. Other time, you're seeing carelessness. I mean, there have been years where the practice has been on the way down, instead of picking up your tent, people just cut the company logo out of the tent fly, right? That kind of stuff needs to stop. Unfortunately, right now, there isn't like a heavy policing of that. Do I know when Bartek is going for his summit push? I don't. We hung out with him a couple nights ago. He didn't really say much about it. I think he's probably watching the crowds and the weather. For him, it's a bit of a tough thing because the warmer it gets, the worse the skiing is. However, the longer he waits, the less crowded it is, which I don't know. Yeah, that's going to be up for him. We will definitely let you know. I'm sure Bartek will let us know on his way up, and we'll follow him. He's such a dude. That guy is so rad. You appreciate the thoughtful and comprehensive answers. Oh, of course. That's my pleasure. Thanks for the insights, Ben and Arnold. The highlight. Well, I mean, it's the highlight of my day too. Thank you all for tuning in. It means so much to us to hear from you all and to get the messages of where people are saying, like this has been like an unexpected new channel for me. It's been a really great and important part of my day. It really feeds us and it really means a lot. So thanks for all those comments. And I've been meaning to thank people too, like as I've mentioned before, that we're like terrible capitalists, right? We are terrible capitalists. All I want to do is like hang out at base camp. Not great for feeding the family, but thanks for people too who have just been like making just little contributions. Like we've just noticed on YouTube, we didn't know you could do that, but people are like just chucking a little bit of dosh our way. I just want to say thank you for that. Like it really means so much to us, and we're working really hard, again, not to like, yeah, I don't know, like buy sports cars and stuff. Like we're just working really hard because we love doing this. I've been so like energized by you all, by our audience and the engagement. And it means a lot to me personally to try to get real information off of Everest to the world that isn't like full of spin and drama and sensationalism. It's been really great to have people respond to that. So all that means so much to us. And all we're trying to do is make sure that we don't like lose our houses in the process of trying to bring this information to you. So it means so much to us. Just wanted to thank everybody. Some last couple questions, and then we're going to wrap up and I'm going to go eat dinner. With leapfrogging, what about coming down versus going up? Are the people coming down expected to unclip around the people going up since they've already summited? So with the Losse face, there's an up road and a down road, so not an issue there. Up higher, these little constricted places are actually quite short. So I don't think you see a ton of like of this kind of collision. Oftentimes what happens is you wait on one side for the people below to pass through, then you go down, then the other people come up. It's kind of a merging thing. It's not like you're like yeeting, it's not like you're like rappelling down the rope and you're bumping into somebody coming up. Oftentimes, that's a lot of the role of Sherpa guides is to try to manage that kind of traffic and to make sure that everybody's moving up and down in an orderly fashion. Well, thanks so much, everybody. Oh, Julia, I wasn't like trolling for money, but thanks. Appreciate the Canadian $7. Really, really do. Honestly, it's really touching. Getting all teary. Um, well, thank you all. Really appreciate the time to hang out with you tonight and for all your questions. We're gonna do it again tomorrow. I think tomorrow we're gonna be talking about the summits. We're probably gonna have a better idea of what the weather forecast looks like moving forward. I think what we're seeing now with this slight change in the forecast, people are starting to get nervous because a lot of people cast their bets on this beautiful weather window. And like weather, it changes. So it could get pretty interesting here in the next few days. We're going to see. Thankfully, today there was a successful rescue. Thankfully, things have been safe for everyone on the mountain, which has been a miracle. And it's one I hope we continue. Thanks, everybody. Peace and love. And we'll talk to you again tomorrow.